Okay, so this is chapter 5, K. Smith, the intentional relationship, working with children and families. And while we're working with children and families, we need to remember that they're all going to be different. They're not going to look like the family that you grew up in or potentially any other family that you've ever met. So we need to know also that there's a difference between the knowledge that we have. Did we get an A in the class? Do we have a 4.0? Versus how we're able to apply that and use that to create a relationship, a therapeutic relationship. That therapeutic relationship helps us to be able to listen, respond, clarify what we heard, and negotiate with that information. So you may be meeting a family or a child during a very stressful time. They could be just diagnosed with something or in a hospital setting where things are painful and stressful. So our therapeutic use of self helps us to create the therapeutic relationship that we need in order for the child and family to get the most out of the therapy. So therapeutic use of self looks like many different things. Some of the things that it includes are your style, your personality, your use of humor, body language. That's why I put this picture here. That body language may be not construed as very inviting. Professionalism and communication. So some of the things in the book that I want you to remember are that your style is your approach. That could be formal, informal, task-oriented, flexible, approachable, relaxed, or serious. So you can have more than one style in your life, and they might change given the situation or the setting that you're in or the person you're working with. Your body language includes things like your posture, your mannerisms, touch, eye contact, professionalism. You should look at Box 5.1, which is the Code of Ethics for OT. I know you've been exposed to this before, but those are obviously applicable to being professional. Also, professionalism is confident, organized, and clear when you are talking and in your written sorry, that's for communication. Yes. So explaining things well in both your words and written information, like your evaluations, your treatment notes, your discharge plans. So that's communication. With communicating, you should remember not to use too much jargon. So use layman's terms. All right, so this is a great visual for the intentional relationship model, which is what this whole chapter is on, the intentional relationship model. You should take notes on table 5-1. Well, maybe not take notes, just look at the table 5.1, which shows some evidence about learning about the intentional relationship model. You should take notes, though, on the box 5.1, the AOTA Code of Ethics. Okay, so back to this picture, the intentional relationship model. You see there's the child or the client, which could also be their family, in the top oval, and then you as the therapist in the bottom oval. There, in between the two of you is the therapeutic relationship process, but that has to get through, or that can get through, some inevitable interpersonal events on the right-hand side, which we're going to talk about. What are some of those interpersonal events and how you respond to those events can impact the therapeutic relationship process. So this is a visual that when we're done with this chapter, you should be able to look back at and understand a little bit better. All right, so things that you do in the intentional relationship model is advocate. So you're helping them to access the things that they need to access. You are collaborating with the child and family so that they have a say in what's going on. You're empathizing with them, which is to feel for them without kind of getting sucked into it too much, meaning that you remain objective. So if you empathize too much, then they might not make changes, or they might get too comfortable. Encouraging, you can be a positive supporter for the child and family. Again, if you overuse the encouraging, it can lack sincerity. If you're constantly giving positive feedback, it can seem to lack sincerity. Instructing is when you educate and teach the child and family. But again, if you're overusing that, you can be bossy and just very task-driven. Problem solving is when you use more logic and reason and kind of technical skills. But again, if you only use that or get stuck there too much, then you might miss the family story or their narrative. There are some interpersonal characteristics that can happen in the short term, which are situational characteristics, like emotional responses to a specific situation. So maybe illness or a family event, versus enduring characteristics. So I might have more of a interpersonal characteristic of liking routine and order, versus having that enduring characteristic of being flexible and spontaneous. So these enduring characteristics are stable and consistent, whereas situational characteristics are emotional responses to a specific situation, which is normally short term. Check out box 5.4, which are interpersonal characteristics that are can both be situational or enduring, but there's great descriptions of each. So an inevitable interpersonal event is a communication, a reaction, a process, task, or general circumstance that occurs that has the potential to negatively impact the relationship. So again, this is just the potential, but that's an inevitable interpersonal event, has the potential to mess with that relationship. So the therapeutic responses, the way that you respond when something happens, can either help or hinder the relationship moving forward. The way that you go about interpersonal reasoning, I would read very carefully on page 132, the therapeutic responses and interpersonal reasoning. There's some bullets there. The different steps will help you to understand this better. There's also strategies for you to specifically develop therapeutic use of self, and those include cultivating your own critical self-awareness. So that means that you and me and all of us need to be aware of our strengths, our limitations, and then be critical of where can we improve, and then be aware not only of our weaknesses, but our strengths, our preferences, our worldviews, because that will impact how we interact with others. Then we can, it says self-care that strengthens, that could be doing kind of professional development / self-work on the areas that will help us improve. And then mindfulness, another word for mindfulness is a centering or intention setting that as therapists we can help to kind of prevent burnout and take care of ourselves, ultimately helping the child and family. I want you to look at boxes 5.5 and 5.6 and take notes on those. Those have a greater description of the possible inevitable events and different categories of events with some examples. And that's all. Have a great day.